This is Voices of CX Podcast Season 5. Recently, the speed of change feels like it's stuck on fast forward, and no one knows what's going to happen next. So we've made it our job to keep you up to speed and help you bring out the very best of your business by discussing the latest ideas with industry professionals, top research institutions, and influential thought leaders. Voices of Customer Experience podcast is brought to you by Worthix, a survey platform that self-adapts according to the changes of the market and the world. Discover your worth at worthix.com. Gabe Larson leads Kustomer's worldwide marketing efforts, including advertising, brand, communication demand, and digital. Prior to joining Kustomer, Gabe was the VP of Marketing for XANT, where he helped create the sales acceleration category and grow the company from 6 to nearly $100 million in revenue, establishing XANT as an industry thought leader and pioneering a new enterprise go-to-market motion. If Gabe is not creating marketing strategies, partnering with salespeople to close a deal, producing content to build a pipeline, or pioneering new marketing and sales approaches, you'll find him at home playing with his 4 boys, or at the nearest karaoke bar pretending he's on America's Got Talent, or at the gym playing basketball like he's still in high school. So we're back for one more episode of Voices of Customer Experience, Season 5. Today I am joined by Gabe Larson, and Gabe Larson is VP of Growth at Kustomer, right?
Yes, that's correct. I'm so excited to be on, Mary. This will be fun.
It's our first crossover of the season where I was on Gabe's podcast and now he's on mine. So welcome to Voices of CX. I'm happy to have you.
Yeah, we're excited. I wish I was doing this under slightly different circumstances than home at the moment, but we'll go with it.
We're recording this at the end of March 2020, and we've just been hit by, what would we call this time, Gabe?
Some people have used the word apocalypse. I don't think I'm okay with that one. So I would prefer, something like disturbance in the force, maybe.
Disturbance in the force. Okay. We are in the middle of a COVID-19 pandemic. The market is currently shut down. I'm working from home. Gabe is working from home. We're all working from home. And we're still doing our best to bring you the very best and most relevant content. So today, what we're going to do is we'll focus on Gabe and what his job is and what his company is doing in the realm of customer service, but we're also going to focus on the current state of the market and how to overcome some of the challenges that companies are going to face from here out. One thing that we know for sure, and I know Gabe agrees with me here, is that the market will never be the same. We don't know what's going to happen, but we know it's going to be different, right?
Yeah, amen to that. That's for sure. And in some ways, maybe it's good not to go back to the way some of the way things were, but I do hope the market rebounds. That would be good for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So why don't we start off, Gabe, by you just kind of introducing yourself to our listeners, talk about who you are, what you do, what inspires you, what makes you passionate about working with customers to begin with.
Yeah. So right now, as you said, I run growth over here at a company called Kustomer, and Kustomer is a kind of a new age customer management platform that focuses on really getting away from this idea of tickets and treating people more like objects and focusing on them as really customers through an omni-channel approach. But this isn't my first foray into the customer experience, and I won't bore you with my long and boring background, but I've always had a passion for the customer experience. And the thing that really hit me off very first is I started my career with a company called Accenture, and I did a project out in San Francisco where we did $100 million customer transformation initiative to modernize a government institution. And we did journey. I probably built 1,000. I probably built a couple hundred journey maps. And I was so glad I started that way, because why don't you think about the customer first? And then, from there, I jumped to Goldman Sachs. I was in banking for a little bit, but right in that 2008, 2009 crisis where things like consumer confidence plagued big banks, and I felt it right in that is the market crash. And then I went over to a company called Gallup, and I led the customer experience program for multiple international brands such as Toyota and Honda and IKEA over in the Middle East. And I've never gotten too far away from the customer. And I've just felt like the further you get away from the customer, the further you get away from making a difference in their lives as well as your company life. So I've tried to stay pretty close.
And how do you think that lined up with the mission of Kustomer, the company that you're working now, and what kind of drew you into working with them?
The thing I feel like I've found is I am a consumer, just like we all are. And you call in, and I know things certainly have changed, but you call into the airline or a hotel or something, and you're repeating information, you're being put on hold, you feel the reps switching from, system to system. They don't know anything about you. It's like, how do you not know anything about me? I've flown with this airline company for 15 years. I'm like a gold medallion, platinum, red carpet, like, how do you not know more about me? You just, every time I talk to you, you're like, okay, who are you? I just feel like we have got to get I've been using this word, kind of the me economy, and I don't mean to be a little disrespectful about it, but my life revolves around me in a lot of ways. And so
Yeah.
I want, when I call somebody, I want them to act differently. I want them to know about me. I want them to treat me personal and special. And I just felt like currently the world isn't there, and a lot of customer service technologies have not been able to facilitate that. When I came across Customer, that's it. They put the customer first, and when you call in, they know not everything, but they know a lot more about you, and they're able to treat you the way you want to be treated. So I just thought, man, that's been missing, and that's something I want to find. And so I jumped on with Customer just a few months back.
Well, it was interesting you talked about moving away from tickets. And for a while, tickets were really revolutionary, right? They kind of
Absolutely.
changed the landscape back in their day, right? But the market doesn't stop, expectations don't stop, innovation doesn't stop. One thing that I talk about a lot on this podcast and when I'm speaking and in the articles that I write is that lots of people, I think they have the wrong impression when it comes to the difference between customer needs and customer expectations.
Mm.
The needs are always the same. The needs always exist. So, if you have a need for service with a company, that's always going to be there regardless of the technology that's being offered. What technology and innovation does is they shape the expectations of the customers for your brand. But it's not only your direct industry. This happens cross industries as well. The service that your customers have with Amazon is going to shape their expectations to their interactions with you, even though you may not even be in logistics or delivery or retail to begin with. You can be in an entirely different market, but if they know that that technology is readily available to other aspects of the market that they're in, they're going to expect the same from you. Once technology and innovation was able to provide users, buyers, customers in general with a more personalized approach where we all know that data is something that exists and that companies are storing our data, and in lots of cases we're even willing to sacrifice our data or give up information about ourselves in
Yeah,
order to streamline the
absolutely.
experience, right?
Yeah, I mean,
So we're
am
going
I
to make
weird
that
in saying
exchange,
that?
make it good.
Yeah, it's like, look, I'm willing to have people know more about me so that I can be treated more like a person rather than, a number, right? It's like, and some people I think maybe debate that, but yeah, I do. That really resonates with me. Like, treat me like a human, and it's a give to get. Take some of my info, store my history, store my flight, so I don't have to repeat how do you not have my flight in front of you? Like, I've
Yeah.
called you 1,000 times. How's this possible?
Yeah. Yeah. And not only that, like, so for example, in my case, where I am a old millennial, let's say, I was born
Is
in
that a word, by the
1984.
way? Old
Yes, of
millennial?
course it is. An old
Okay,
millennial. Oh, yeah. There's a
trademark that
huge
one. Trademark. Use
there's
that.
a huge difference between the experiences that I went through versus the experience that 25-year-olds went through.
Sure, sure.
Especially because when I grew up, when I was a child, there were no cell phones, there wasn't internet, but that was coming to be as I was entering my teenage years. So I was born right on the cusp of lots of technological innovations. So, I remember being 12 years old and watching on TV that e-commerce existed, but it was definitely not a part of my reality at that point, you know?
Right, right.
I got a little bit of both worlds. I understand what's it like to be pre technology, pre data, pre all of that stuff, and what it's like to be after. I think that in my case, what happens is I know what it's like, or at least I know what it theoretically was like to not have that information, but I also know what companies are capable of doing. So my expectations are a lot higher.
Yeah.
And I know what companies have gone through to get to that certain stage. So, you talked about flights and being a loyalty member and, how do you not have my information? I know for a fact that big airline companies have access to the technology and information to streamline my experience and reduce my effort. So why don't they have it? So in your case, your company works directly with customer service, right?
Yes.
Which is a really important aspect of the overall experience. It's not the entire experience, but it's a really important aspect of it. And it is, I'm going to say, a huge differentiator when it comes to customers choosing to keep doing business with you or switching to a competitor, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So how are you pitching, your technology as a main differentiator in customer service?
Yeah, I mean, really the 3 big things are, and we'll probably highlight a couple of them in the show just from some of the trends in the space, but one very much just aligns with what we've talked about, right? It's like you've got to move away from looking at people as numbers and items, and you've got to start looking at people as a holistic, all of their experiences, the orders that they had, the conversations from past times, other information you can bring in from different systems. You've got to bring that into one single view and talk to them and personalize. And so a customer centric, customer first view is number one. Number two is this, and this has become a buzzword, but I got to still use it. It's just this omni channel approach, right? We can't force customers to be where we want to be. Email and phone, I know they're still the most popular. Look, I get it, but that's not necessarily maybe where your customers want to be. And so we've really worked on not buying companies. And, sometimes when you use technology, it feels like it's a duct taped version or it's a bolted on version. We're new enough in the space that as an agent, you can just flip a button and you're texting, flip another button and you're emailing, flip another button, you're on Facebook, flip another button. We've got 14 plus channels that people are communicating back and forth with customers on. And it's not just flipping tabs, it's not changing systems. It's just, one little checkbox and you're interacting where they want to interact. So number two is a true omni channel. And then the number three is this artificial intelligence conversation and deflection. There's no way that anybody's replacing agents. We're not there, and I don't see that happening anytime soon. But are we eliminating agents? No. Are we empowering agents? Yes, and that's where AI can be. And so finding ways when people are on your chat to deflect some different things to your knowledge base, or recommending to agents maybe the next best thing to say, or providing sentiment for an agent to understand, kind of how this person is feeling by the tonality in their voice, and these different things where you can use AI to empower agents. It's the world in which we live in, where you got to be a little bit more productive. You got to be efficient. So number one, again, customer centric, two, omni-channel, and three, AI. Those are the three reasons people are jumping from some of more of the legacy systems that you'd be familiar with to kind of just a modern approach to a modern customer experience.
If you've been struggling with the whole work from home thing, we've got you covered. Worthix's Work From Home University will be sending weekly advice on how to be productive, cut out distractions, and just stay sane in general straight to your inbox. And if you're curious on how we're tackling work from home here at Worthix, just follow us on Insta, Twitter, and LinkedIn for updates. I actually, I agree with all of those things. And what you just said about AI, I'm absolutely on board with that. My company I work for, Worthix, we use AI too. And, at times we have to tread lightly when entering organizations because some people are still fearful of the term AI and they automatically see it as a threat. And for those of us who are working in the space, we understand that the idea of using automation, AI, bots, machine learning, natural language processing, etc., is actually to take away not only the boring stuff, but I think it's prioritizing so that you can do more with less, in the sense that, okay, if your customer is going to be on hold, instead of them listening to background music, if they can already start interacting with some sort of bot, let's say, to,
Mhm.
to begin understanding the need so that when the agent gets on the line, they can have a much quicker response to the customer's need, then why not? Why would you waste those precious minutes with the customer frustrated because they're on hold, the agent rushing to get off their call so that they can jump on to the next? Meanwhile, nothing is actually happening productivity wise. I mean, I think that there's a lot of benefits there as long as companies, like you said, don't see it as a replacement of the agent, but see it as an add on.
It's just not. I don't think we need to go there, right? It's just that's such a. It's almost like a scare tactic, and it's kind of a fun conversation. I mean, I like to watch the Terminator movies, and so,
Right, yeah,
um
people always go there, right? Like, in their minds, are like, immediately, they're like
but, it's just not real, and so I prefer to deal we got enough weird things going on around us, like, let's just deal in reality for the moment, you know?
let's deal with one apocalypse at a time. Let's not do a machine apocalypse as we're going right now. No, but I'm totally on board with streamlining the experience, and it really gets into reducing effort, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's the idea, right? Is ultimately if it helps your customer provide that effortless experience, then it's something you should consider. And if not, you probably don't need to go there. But I think people are, and I was saying this, pre-show, it's just we've got customers who are now getting 10 times the number of support inquiries that they were getting previous to, some of the new normal economy we're facing. 10 times? What what do you do
Yeah.
to that? And that was almost overnight. And so you can't ramp up 1,000 agents like that. You can't. I'm not saying there is an easy solution, but technology, AI's got to be one of them. It's just got to.
Especially when it's from one moment to the next, right?
Right.
I
Right.
think that one of the calls that we have on this, podcast for this season is that the speed of change is on fast forward, and that's really something that we felt like and, in general, anybody that looks at the market will say that the market has moved extremely fast in the last maybe decade and a half or decade or 2, where you see companies that didn't exist 5 years ago all of a sudden are some of the biggest companies in the world. Whereas massive giants that have been around since our existence no longer exist in a heartbeat, right? In a blink of an eye, a company is gone. In a blink of an eye, a company is formed and is a giant. But at this moment, the current moment that we're living in right now, which is the end of the first quarter of 2020, all of a sudden, everything changed from one moment to the next. And it was way faster than any of us could have ever predicted for a situation that none of us could have predicted. So, how do markets react? How do companies react? How do companies retain their customers? How do they retain profits during times like this? So, let's shift the conversation slightly into a more current moment. And let's talk a little bit about that and your view.
Yeah, yeah. I think big picture, I think you've set it up perfectly, actually. So I don't know if I need to add much to it as far as setting up kind of the contextual world that we're living in. It's just, I'm part of a couple mastermind groups with, different marketing leaders and different customer experience leaders. And because it was so fast, because the world turned so fast, everybody is kind of scratching their head and saying, what works, what doesn't work. Just a couple numbers, to share, from myself and some of my peers. The meetings that their sales teams are having. I'm seeing one person here say down 46%. Website traffic for another is down 24%. A support query up 10 times. I mentioned that before, up 10 times where they were 3 weeks before. So when you throw out some numbers like that, it's like 46%, 10 times, like what you were, definition of insanity right here, right? What you were doing before won't work anymore. And so
Yeah.
if you don't quickly ramp for that and figure out how to change, and I don't want to pretend like I have all the answers, but I know you and I mean, we're doing it the same for our businesses, but keeping open and dialoguing about this, I think will help us all. And so those are some of the things that I wanted to share today.
If you think about it, there was no way of predicting which companies would get hit the hardest and which ones would benefit the most. I don't think that anybody 2 months ago could imagine the profit margins of companies like Purell and Clorox at the moment. Like there was no way of and that's the thing when you have these catastrophic events that are kind of out of control, there's no way of predicting which aspect of the market it's going to get hit, and I'm sitting at my home and I can't help but wonder about hospitality industry and how they're going to recover from all of this. I can't help think of, restaurants and gyms and places that were forced to shut their doors entirely and their business didn't decrease, 40%, 24%. It decreased 100% from one day to the next. And not a lot of companies are going to survive. And that's really scary, you know?
Well, and I love that point, right? That is you can't know the future, and this is for all of us. Like, look, There could be scary times ahead, but there could have been scary times ahead 2 months ago. Well, there was scary times ahead 2 months ago. You didn't know about it. Don't live in the future, live in the present.
Yeah.
Don't blame yourself. I mean, look, no one saw this coming. We can't see it coming. But now that we're here, you have the power to change whatever you can in the current moment. And so, yeah, whether it's your own attitude or, maybe some of these principles we'll go through today, you got to change, you got to maneuver, and you got to iterate. You need to do it as fast as you can, because business won't be the same. It's not going to be the same. And you can't win with what you were doing. So change fast.
Okay, so let's do it. Let's keep up with the speed of change here. How is Gabe Larson going to help us keep up with the speed of change today, especially in customer facing organizations?
Yeah. So the first thing that came to my mind, and some of this, you guys, is certainly just my own, I'm a practitioner, right? So
Hmm.
as a growth officer for kind of a fast growing tech startup, I oversee the customer experience. I oversee marketing. I oversee a portion of sales. And so this is, some of my own bias, but I'm also pouring in I've been on a lot of phone calls with customers over the past, weeks. And so some of this is the best practices that they're implementing as well. So I did want to just quickly preface that. The first one is, and we kind of hit on this, but I want to make sure everyone hears it and kind of mentally notes it, that the cost to acquire new business is becoming so much more difficult. I said some of those numbers. Companies are seeing 30, 40, 50% decrease in website traffic, meetings, their ability to close deals, that people are being pushed. So as a leadership team, you need to shift your focus and say, you can't say we're going to dry up new business, but I'm telling you right now, that is going to be more difficult than shoring up your customer base. And so finding a way for your leadership team to say, okay, we got to keep the lights on for new business, but that's going to be difficult. How do we not lose anybody? We got to keep every single person in the boat, and finding strategies, communication, the best practices, Slack group. That's where I think people should be spending more of their time while they keep the lights on, with the new business acquisition.
Retention and loyalty, then. How to make sure your customers stick around. What do you think that some of those ways are? I mean, of course, it's impossible to predict that for all the industries out there.
Yeah,
But what do you feel are the main ways? You talk about how customer service is a game changer and how that is essentially going to be the one thing that sets companies apart, or, has them stand out. Do you truly believe that that's enough to get customers to stay?
I think that has been a buzzword for a while, but I do think it's becoming more of a reality. But there is still the one click underneath that, and that is, and I don't mean to be again cliche here, but we are seeing a general shift in the market, right? For a long time, there was brand advocacy, meaning I liked Nike enough that even if I had some problems, like I was attracted to the brand, like the brand made customer service. They loved it. Now, sometimes the brand and the experience were hand in hand, but oftentimes just brands were able to kind of thrive based on their brand.
Mhm.
You're seeing that change, and that concept of effortless customer experience. Wherever I can get the least amount of friction, because I'm telling you right now, I'm getting friction everywhere. I'm
Mhm.
trying to order food online. I'm trying to get my flights changed. I'm trying to get my kids in and out of school. And it's all so frictionless. I don't care what your brand is. I don't care what you did before. I have to have ease and simplicity. So the company that finds that effortless score, that effortless customer experience, will be the defining characteristic of brands that survive in this new normal.
I have to give an example here of something that I went through personally yesterday. This is a really difficult time for airlines all over, for everything that has to do with travel or hospitality. And, the listeners of this podcast know that I live in Atlanta and I'm a big fan of Delta, which is basically mandatory if you live in Atlanta. There's a couple things. If you live in Atlanta, you drink Coca-Cola and you fly Delta, period. But
I love it.
we had to cancel a flight, and I have never had not only an easier experience, but a more positive experience with an airline. They truly were able to have how can I even say this? It's a state of mind in general. They've understood that there's nothing that they can do. They can't fight this. So they've accepted it, and they've accepted it with understanding and empathy, and they're going above and beyond to make Delta customers feel respected and cared about at this moment. So the agent that got on the line to help us cancel this flight, she was so helpful and so caring. And the whole time she was saying, "Oh, wow, you know what? This is the right decision. You guys should not take any risks. Your family is the most important thing at this moment." They were losing money. We were canceling a flight, and they were still saying, "This is the best decision for your family right now. Just stay
Wow.
home, stay
Wow.
safe. And, Delta, don't worry about it. We're adding this credit. You can use this for up to a year. And if anything happens, you don't have to worry at all. Delta's got your back." That
Wow.
was the tone, that was the conversation. There was absolutely nothing difficult or high effort about the experience at all. So, I'd like to just, take advantage of this to give a shout out to Delta for how amazing their customer service has been.
No, and I do. I love the example because I think you're finding it's interesting to see some of these things, and I want to be a little careful in the way I talk about this, but we've had more customers start to get rid of those like real fancy kind of loyalty programs, like
Yeah.
the expert red carpet type thing, and just get back to like, you know what, we need to make it easy for everybody. And I was talking to one gentleman, I just loved it. He's like, look, we don't have this luxury right now of trying to tier it all out into a 7-tiered customer service program. Like, we just got to make it easy for everybody. And I was like, yes, 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 that's it. Like, go there. In fact,
Yeah.
we should have probably started there. I don't want to knock kind of the tiered customer service because I think there's a time and a place, but right now, I would probably say focus less on those things and get back to like this super easy because man, it is a frictionless economy that we need to be running right now.
Yeah, and not only that, I think that these moments of crisis are when people are all hyped up and very emotional. Everything kind of elicits an emotional response because people are so high strung at this point. And for those of us who work with customers, we know that high emotion moments are the ones that create memorability. They're the ones that actually create the memories that customers are going to reach for when it comes time to make their decision. So companies need to be more careful than ever because customers will remember the decisions that companies make during this time, and it will make or break them once this crisis is over. So, customers may be to a certain degree hostage of you at this point because they may have very few options. But the day their options return, there's no way customers are going to choose companies that took advantage of a crisis situation to make a profit.
Yeah, yeah, and that you stole one of my points here, but I'll just double click on the last one. It just Yeah, there's something about that last statement you made, right? If you're a doomsdayer, I guess you could say, this will never change and the world is ending. I personally don't believe that. I think we're going to come out, and I think we're going to come out as a nation stronger and an economy stronger. And if you are of that mindset, then that idea of, finding a way to stick with your customers, because when you come out of it, they're going to remember those people who got in the trench with them and fought with them versus fought against them.
Yeah. So let's get back to your points. Number one was that increase in customer acquisition cost and having to increase loyalty and not lose any people, right? That was like your
That's right.
number one,
Yep.
right?
Yep. And then number two, I was talking about this just real maniacal focus on effort.
Hmm.
Got to go there. I think that's going to be a real defining characteristic. The next two concepts, I think I might combine this proactive concept. We've talked to some customers who are down, and so some of their agents, they have more time on their hands. This is the time to get proactive. Normally we're reactive. We wait for someone to come to us and chat. We wait for someone to call. But you being proactive, I think, will really separate winners from losers in this new normal economy. But it's not just the concept of being proactive, it's being proactive with a value based approach. Definitely, I've seen some people reach out to me, and it has been business as usual. And truthfully, it's offensive. It's been offensive to reach out and say, hey, I know you're a customer. Would you like to look at our credit card, or, would you like to, look at this new offer? And I'm like, are you kidding me? You know what's happening right now? No, I don't want that. Now, the funny thing is, I just feel like it's a knee jerk reaction just because of maybe what I'm dealing with at the moment or what we're dealing with. And if you just tone that down a little bit and give some more value, like, in these challenging times, we thought you might want to consider this. Oh, and by the way, we have our promotional offer still available. Mix and match it, but you've got to start one by going more proactive. You can't just sit on your laurels here anymore. Customer service needs to be going outbound. And I know that's been a little bit of a buzz, but I'm telling you now, it's not acceptable to not. You have to. Then part two is when you go outbound, give to get. Make sure you start by giving value, care about them. It's a simple question, but if you do an outbound phone call, I love it. I had one person call me and they just said, hey, Gabe, how you doing? The tone felt authentic. It felt real. It could be as simple as that, but I would say give value, and I promise you that you'll get value back. So I would kind of combine those two as a two-part, but make sure you go proactive and then start with that value-based approach when you do.
In the past weeks, we've seen drastic fluctuations in customer buying patterns and sentiment. Now, more than ever, in this time of need, it's important to monitor and track how your customers perceive your processes and experiences. If you'd like to know more about how Worthix can help your company stay ahead of customer expectations, reach out for a demo at worthix.com. That's a great point. And, that's one thing that, at least in the marketing world, we've been seeing a lot of thought leaders harping on that. Is just don't be tone deaf. Adapt your message, modify your offer so that it's relevant to what you have today. Because if you don't, like you said, it might even be considered offensive.
It's a strong word, but I think that's not too strong. I mean, it's a little bit offensive.
No, but I do understand where you're coming from. There's a certain part of me that has enough empathy to understand that everybody's got to sell, and businesses are struggling. So I've got that business perspective as well, where companies are like, okay, well, if we don't sell, or if we stop selling, then we're gonna go under. And if we go under, not only is it the organization, it's the people and the families that depend on this income. So I also understand from a certain point of view that everybody's kind of desperate, but we can't let our desperation get the best of us at this time, where we become careless or we overlook what our customers are going through as well. So it's a combination of, I think, from a business standpoint, understanding that if you still need to sell regardless so that you're able to get through this time, then a little empathy will go a long way.
I think
And understanding, how to tailor your message not only to this time, but to what people are going through. Like you said, just be a little bit more human.
yeah.
Be authentic in your approach. I think that'll go a long way at this time.
There is a balance, and this is where I think the words empathy and creativity probably need to come to the forefront. Like, you don't need to, obviously we're dealing with kind of a global pandemic, and I don't know if you need to put in your subject line COVID-19, or
Right.
I'm tired of hearing about that. Like, it's everywhere, and I see it everywhere, and I don't really want to talk about it, but I do like talking about me
Mhm.
and my feelings and how my family's dealing with it. And so I would just watch that switch, right? Don't bombard your customers with the problems of the day. Talk to them about how they're doing and how you can support them in their journey. So that personalized, empathetic, creative way is going to be the right words versus the run of the mill type language that you're seeing out there sometimes.
So that was 3 and 4 combined.
Yeah. See, I'm streamlining. Like I told you, I'm changing on the fly. That's kind of what I do, right? No, I'm just the next one, is we move to this flexible workspace. We've all got to join hands and kind of do this together. So flexible workspaces with remote capabilities, I think, are going to really empower employees to stay motivated and feel safe and secure. You can't forget about your employees in all of this. And it's funny, I found some leaders are so good at communicating to their employees. They're doing like daily huddles, and they're doing weekly town halls, and they're doing these fun social Zoom things. And then they're not doing anything to their customers. And then sometimes vice versa. It's like remember, this is the two levers. You got to be pulling both of them. So one, I'd say don't forget about your customers on this. Second, though, is a lot of us went and said, hey, we're remote, we're going remote. And that's kind of where things are. And we made it. Whew. Everyone got remote and got out of the office. And we kind of left it at that. And the question I would pose to you is, how is everybody's remote situation going?
Ugh, it's going
Um,
horribly. I hate it. Thanks for asking.
well, no, I mean, here's another example, right? I've got 4 people on my team that live alone in New York City. That's where I am. They're alone
Yeah.
and they're not leaving their apartments and they're struggling and they're having anxiety. And some of them are college students who don't have a desk. They don't have working Wi-Fi. And so are you thinking about that? And the answers may not be that easy, but boy, I think you've got to double click on it and not just say we made it remote, but how is the remote situation going? Are we thinking about engaging activities, finding ways to get them involved, making sure that they're feeling cared for and loved, so that obviously they can deliver that brand promise to your customers that you're hoping to do? So the big one there is go remote. That's fine. That's where we all are. But boy, find a way to empower those remote employees to stay motivated and happy, because I promise it'll be a big ROI if you can.
Absolutely. And as I know you're a team lead, I am as well. But I think that to a certain sense, I think I struggle more than my team with remote work. I feel like I thrive in an office
Yeah.
you know, scene and I'm a mother and I have a dog and I have laundry and I have to cook, so being at home for me is ridiculously distracting. And while lots of people thrive in a home environment and they can just close the door and that's it, for other people, depending on your reality, it becomes a struggle. So when you have situations of like a dual income households where both parents work, you have to find a way to help people manage those domestic tasks and create schedules. And there are, like you said, there are people who maybe live with roommates, or they aren't in an ideal situation to work from home. And companies have to not only be mindful of that, but be understanding of that as well. That some
Yeah.
people might not adapt as well as others.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm looking at a note from, this is actually just a colleague, but I think it's so timely here, and I won't say his or her name, but she said, I know it's a crazy time right now, isn't it? Hope you're doing well. We're all okay. I have 3 kids homeschooling, husband on furlough, 2 maids. Now she's international, 2 maids, and my son's girlfriend with us. And I'm trying to work from home. And my company is trying to maintain, a business as usual attitude.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, yes, amen. That is kind of the way that it's working. So for some of us, that's an obvious one, and I know a lot of people are on top of that. So I don't mean to make you feel guilty, but know that it's more, it goes deeper than you think. That would probably be my message. That yes, you got remote, but you got people that are alone. Some people are having a hard time now getting some food with our food deliveries. Peel back some of those layers and try to get the person first if you can.
Yeah, that's awesome. Moving on. That was number 5, right? Focusing, don't forget about your people and providing those flexible workspace.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna just go with 2 more. I'm gonna go with 2 more here, but the one is, we talked a little bit about communication with customers. We hit employees, and I think we need to hit the customer side of it. And you are seeing this, but companies already positioned for a digital first experience or a true omni-channel experience are and will continue to outpace others that are not. This one's a little harder to swallow because some of us just weren't well positioned for a digital first interaction or an overall digital interaction. And this one, it's probably a little bit more obvious, but your customers are now going all digital. We've had a lot of people reach out and be like, we got to get the Instagram channel going as fast as we can, and it's like, they never thought about that, right? There, we're just going on, email. They were an email ticketing system. We got texting. They're hitting all these different channels and they're wanting to interact with them in different ways. And that might be a hard change for you to get digital and get omni-channel. But I'm telling you, in the long run, this is another one. This is one of the things I don't think is going to change as we go back. People are going to continue with some of the services that they've been introduced to, and they're going to continue using those services in a mobile application, through Facebook groups, through forum groups. And so I just encourage you to while things are a little slow, take the time, if you can, to double down on that digital journey and really optimize it, because when things get back up and going, it'll pay dividends as well.
You know, that got me thinking about the kids' school. And I was thinking about how all of our children, for those out there who have children, we're all on remote learning or like e-learning platforms right
Yeah.
now. And I was thinking about, wow, if this pandemic had hit 5 years ago, we'd all be screwed.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least from an education standpoint, because my kids, they have a couple e-learning days per year. And so the system has kind of been tested before.
Interesting.
And moving them to that, e-learning platform, it was a lot easier than I expected, especially from the public school system. So, I mean, that was for me, it was pretty impressive that they pulled that off, at least in my school district, where everybody just kinda transferred to e-learning, and it's not the best, but it certainly is a lot better than I hoped it would be, for real. Like, it kinda surpassed my expectations there, and we're talking about the public school system, and we're not talking about customers and I don't know what, and still being able to move to digital in the blink of an eye really made the difference here when it came to our children's continued education during a world crisis.
Yeah, and see, look, it sounds like, you had some people that were updated and, ready to move forward, but a lot of people aren't. And that, again, you can't plan these things. You can just adapt to the current circumstances. So whatever you can do to follow suit, I think that's important.
Yeah, as soon as this whole thing started, I remembered there's a company that I am a customer of, and I'm a huge fan of their entire experience, which is Sephora. And I remember as soon as this started, very, very early on, they made the decision, even before lockdowns were imposed by local governments, they made the decision to close their physical stores. And when they did so, they sent out a communication where they immediately eliminated shipping costs for all of their e commerce operations. And at least for myself, who's used to using the app to buy, nothing changed in my relationship with Sephora. It was like from one moment to the next, we were 100% digital, and that's how we're moving forward. And even though, I feel like companies like Sephora might have a certain loss when it comes to the foot traffic in their physical stores, I still feel like they're a lot better off than companies that weren't as digital at the beginning of this whole thing.
Hmm. Yeah, agreed.
So, wrapping it up, what do you think ultimately is the one thing that if companies had to focus on as a sole mission, what could they do to really stand out in all of this?
Yeah, I think this is and sometimes, it's funny. I think we want answers for these types of questions that, it's like, oh man, I want it, I want something unique and different and crazy, like the secret answer to the universe, But this is the primary answer. This is back to the basics, you guys. That's why I put point number one as I did. It's just in the last couple of weeks, I've talked to now multiple of 7 people who've lost their job. Got a lot of people, the sales, the new business is going away. And so more than ever, and I don't mean to be cliche in it, but that customer loyalty, that customer experience, you've got to find a way. I don't know the answer for you. It's going to be different. For some, it might be that effortless experience. Some, it might be the proactive communication. Some, it might be the value. Some, it might be a special offer that you give to customers. Some, it might be a town hall, just you keep up communication from the top down. There's a lot of different things you could do in that customer journey, but I'm telling you, if you thought it was a little bit of a joke back then, now it's real. You have got to keep those customers in the boat. Don't let them leave at all costs, and that manage that customer experience to perfection. And I promise you, if you do, you'll come out of this better than most people.
That's awesome. Gabe, if our listeners want to hear more from you or connect with you with their questions and with their comments, how can they do that?
Yeah, I run a little bit of a podcast myself, and so feel free to check us out. In addition, I love LinkedIn. It's so much fun, and you can find me at Gabe Larson, and I try to do a weekly LinkedIn Live now, and I'm pretty active there. So would love it if we continue the dialogue there.
Gabe, thanks so much for coming on. Really happy to have you. And I'd like to invite everybody to listen to Gabe's podcast as well. Do you want to send everybody over there, Gabe?
Yeah, it's the customer service secret, so feel free to check us out.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Thank you for joining us on one more episode of Voices of CX podcast. This podcast is hosted and produced by Mary Drumond, edited and co-produced by Steve Barry. Voices of CX is brought to you by Worthix. Keep up with the speed of change at worthix.com.